rules before we get into our first segment. It's as simple as this, folks. A great take gives you 200 points. A good take gives you 100 points. An okay take gives you 50. And a bad take, you come home empty-handed with 0 points. Of the many, many storylines of which we will dive into most of them on the show, potentially chief among them, no pun intended, is Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, looking for his third Super Bowl title and who knows, potentially third Super Bowl MVP to lead the Chiefs to their third Super Bowl championship in the last half decade. And a lot has been made about Mahomes. He's got 2 championships, potentially a third. He's got a couple league MVPs, couple of Super Bowl MVPs, and has shattered virtually every record through the first 5 years of his career from that perspective. So I'll ask you, Dylan, if the Chiefs win this football game, assuming Patrick Mahomes plays well, where does Mahomes move up in your all-time rankings among quarterbacks?
I mean, Patrick Mahomes is already great. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big proprietor of longevity. Only 6 years in the league, and he's done things that no other quarterback's ever done. So he's already, creeping into the top 10 with a third Super Bowl victory under his belt already. He might be close to the top 5. I hate the GOAT talks. He doesn't sniff Brady yet. You got to have at least 15 years for me to really consider, even the GOAT conversation. Still have Aaron Rodgers over him. Give me Peyton Manning. I mean, Joe Montana, he's one of the old guards that still deserves his love for, being undefeated in the Super Bowl and still putting almost 20 years up. But without a doubt, I mean, Mahomes still deserves his flowers. And quite frankly, it's still, even comparing him to other quarterbacks in this era, like Matt Stafford or even like, Philip Rivers or Big Ben, like these guys put way more years, but Mahomes is already creeping up in stats. So he's definitely he's definitely going to be the top 5 conversation. There's only 10 teams that ever won 3 Super Bowls, including the Chiefs already. So, catapulting the Chiefs with 3 of their 4 rings will definitely put him in the top 5 for me.
Yeah, no question. And we talk about what he's done the first 6 years of his career. You talk about the records. You talk about, it's just steps in the league. What's just mind-boggling about Mahomes is that Brady's the greatest ever. I think we'd all agree on that. But Brady's growth was a slow, gradual one. With Patrick Mahomes, he comes in year 2, which was his first year as a starter. Bam, 50 touchdown passes and starts a string of 6 straight AFC title game appearances. But he has put together a stretch of fantastic football. Dylan, I spelled your name wrong. I don't want to do that on Carving Up Live. I don't want to, carving it up. I'm already messing up on the 8 o'clock spot. Dylan Lima, and I just misspelled his name again. Rough start for the host of the 8 o'clock spot here. Here we go. Let's put it out. Okay, I'm going to give you an okay take here, the 50 points. The only reason I gave you an okay take is I didn't get an exact number necessarily, like 4, 7, 8. But other than that, I thought you delivered some really good points in terms of what he's done the first 5 years of his career. To Dalton Brown, where would Patrick Mahomes be in your all-time rankings, assuming the Chiefs win Super Bowl 58?
Oh, he's number 2 easily for me. The only argument right now is Brady ahead of him. And that's a pretty obvious one, right? I mean, the titles, the longevity, the numbers overall. At the end of the day, if we're just going by counting stats, then sure, you're going to have a couple guys, Manning, Breeze, Rodgers, some guys who would stay ahead of him in that sense. But in terms of the consistent winning, the consistent not only making it to conference title games, making it to Super Bowls, winning Super Bowls, there's only one other quarterback who's done it the way we've seen with Patrick Mahomes, and it's Tom Brady. Now, I think you could make an argument that Patrick Mahomes is number 1 if you were to look at things from the perspective of if we assume the trajectory continues. Now, the reason Tom Brady is number 1, that's a massive assumption to make. Right? Like there's no reason to assume that the trajectory will continue. But we're talking 3 Super Bowls if he were to win this one by the time he turns 29 years old. There's no time. Quarterbacks play a long time nowadays. And with how well he takes care of his body, there's no reason he can't enter the Brady conversation down the line. But if he wins this one, I've already got him at number 2.
Yeah, and you can make a strong case for that. You talk about, like I saw a side-by-side comparison on television earlier today about Mahomes' first 6 years to Brady's, and as great as Brady's first 6 years was, right? He got the Super Bowl, the 3 Super Bowl titles. He got another appearance. He got an MVP in that span. Mahomes, again, the stretch of it. Like, I think we don't take into account, even though we don't like to give this necessarily as much love as Super Bowls, rightfully so. The 6 straight AFC title games is insane. He just now played his first road AFC title game, which is just unbelievable and shows you the dominance of Kansas City in the regular season. This really being kind of the outlier year in that regard. Dalton, great take. I'm going to give you to the full 200 points here to put you in first place for the moment. But I think, listen, I'm sort of the ballpark or of the camp I talked about yesterday on my show, that I think Mahomes definitely unquestionably passes Peyton Manning with the title on Sunday. The only reason I give Montana the slight edge is more titles and just as many MVPs. But you can listen, in terms of pure raw ability, Mahomes far exceeds Montana in that regard. So Dalton Brown gets a great take. To you, Alfred Parsard Jr., where would Mahomes go in your all-time rankings if he wins this year's Super Bowl?
If Mahomes wins this year's Super Bowl and plays well, I'm putting him second on the list. You only have 4 quarterbacks who have won 3 or more Super Bowls. Tom Brady, of course, being the all-time leader. Then you've got Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw, and Troy Aikman. What the difference is why I would put Mahomes second and have him jump Aikman, Montana, and Bradshaw is because out of all those guys, mind you, these are all Hall of Famers. But look what he has to work with. Troy Aikman had Michael Irvin. Joe Montana had Jerry Rice. Patrick Mahomes is doing it with Travis Kelce and the supporting cast. So we all got to remember the Chiefs offense, especially this year. Remember, this will be his 3rd Super Bowl win. He only had Tyreek Hill for 1 of those Super Bowl wins. So it's not like he has this dynamic, explosive offense. Isaiah Pacheco has been hit or miss all year. Rashee Rice is going to be the guy in a couple of years, but he's not the guy this year. So without Travis Kelce, you take away Travis Kelce, or God forbid he gets injured in that Super Bowl, we don't know how that's going to pan out for Mahomes. But to be in the company that he is in now, he has 2 Super Bowl rings. So a 3rd Super Bowl ring is going to put him over Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, and even old timers such as Roger Staubach and Bart Starr. So when you're in the company of all these Hall of Famers, to accomplish more than they did, especially with less than what they had, that ranks you higher, in my opinion.
And I think what's really interesting, you talked about what he's got to work with, particularly this year. And even you could say an argument can be made about last year, because with all due respect, I don't think Juju Smith-Schuster was the difference between the Chiefs being a fantastic offense last year and kind of a middle of the pack one. What's that?
Not to mention, if you look at the Chiefs wide receiver ranks, their wide receivers are last. Their wide receiving core is last in almost every offensive statistic category for wide receivers compared to most other teams. So that should also tell you something too. You got to be great to lead an offense to the Super Bowl and rank almost dead last in every wide receiver category.
Yeah, I know for the stat that jumps out, what you sort of referred to there, is they led the league in drops. And, you think about Mahomes, like he was known as, and he still from time to time can do this, just not as much as he used to. He came to the league as sort of this kind of gunslinger, take big risks, but he kind of recognized now, and this is a credit to his football IQ, is the fact that guys can't separate the way they used to. We're not going to be able to hit the big play the way we used to. So I'm going to dial back, and pardon me for using this expression for a quarterback such as Mahomes, but dare I say a bit of a game manager type role, like just sort of kind of like Baltimore. Like I feel like they sort of let the Ravens mess up and make mistakes, kind of like the Patriots did, like not take any big risks, and then when you get the opportunity, kind of pounce on that. But Alfred Parsard Jr., I'm going to give you a great take, 200 points to tie you up with Dalton on top. I think in terms of, like you said, the historical significance and what Mahomes has to work with, I think is a valid point and a great point. So Alfred Parsard Jr. in second. I'm tied for first place with Dalton. Finally, with you, AJ, where does Patrick Mahomes go in your all-time quarterback rankings if he wins this year's Super Bowl?
If he wins the Super Bowl, and it kind of, for me, depends if he wins that MVP or not. If he wins the MVP, he'll be 3 for 3. And I think, like, when I look at other quarterbacks, that kind of sets him ahead of those guys who have the same amount of Super Bowl wins. He also has 17 playoff games in his career already, which I think is a pretty incredible number. So I would put him in third behind Brady and Montana. But if he doesn't win that MVP, then I would put him in fourth behind Bradshaw. And I didn't have the pleasure of watching Bradshaw, but just from, my years of watching football and just seeing stuff about him, I think it was like he won 4 Super Bowls. I think he had like a touchdown winning pass for all 4 of those games. And so if you're tied with him in terms of MVPs, still got that 1 Super Bowl up on Mahomes. But I just think that kind of stat is exciting for me. Mind you, I didn't see him live. So, but yeah, that's how I would rank Mahomes.
Yeah, and that's like I said, and that's you sort of alluded to some of the things why I put Montana above, and it's not just like again. I think we oftentimes in these GOAT discussions, we oftentimes sort of ignore like who's the better player. I think best and greatest are two different, categories. I think Mahomes is the best quarterback of all time. Greatest though, that's more of an accolade based along with your abilities. But like you mentioned, like the Super Bowl MVP does matter. Like Tom got 5 Super Bowl MVPs. I think Montana got 3. Rice, I think Jerry Rice won one of those Super Bowl MVPs in the '80s dynasty with the San Francisco 49ers. But AJ, I'm going to give you a good take to get you to 100 points here in second place. Good take, especially talking about the Super Bowl MVP like that never. I mean, it occurred to me just not in the way that what it would do for his all-time ranking. So I think you make some really good points.